Welcome, Sabrina, to my YouTube channel. So this is an amazing woman I met through the Empowered ExJW Witness Facebook group. And we just talked over a year ago and just hit it off. I was one of the first people that she had on her podcast, and she's just a ray of light. And I just find her so inspirational because she's continuously showing up in my feed with her mission. And with that being said, she has inspired me to be more active in the social media, in the YouTube space. So I just want to say, Sabrina, you are such an inspiration to me in this space with this mission that you have, so true to yourself. So I just want to say thank you to that. With that being said, Sabrina has such an interesting story of being a Jehovah's Witness, ex-Jehovah's Witness, and I wanted her to share her story and then share about her life right now and where she is. So
Yes.
I'll let you take the lead, Sabrina.
Yes,
you can go ahead.
yes.
Tell us a little bit about how you grew up. Were you born in? At what age did you get baptized, and what was your exit strategy out?
I don't even remember what age I got baptized in, but my parents actually got converted the old-fashioned way, or the way that you would think that nobody gets converted, but someone came to their door. Brother and sister Brobiak, am I allowed to say that? Went to the door, and yeah, they first grabbed a hold of my mom, and after a few months or so, grabbed a hold of my dad. And I think when I was 5, so that was when I was 3. So I celebrated holidays for 3 years. I don't remember. When I was 5, both of my parents got baptized on the same day. And so it's everything that I ever knew. You know, I often say that I was born and raised as a Jehovah's Witness because that's what it feels like. I don't remember anything other than that. And for the most part, it is what it is. I mean, I was never really one of those kids that felt bad for not celebrating the holidays. If anything, I was probably somewhat narcissistic about the holidays. I felt better than everybody else. I felt like I knew something that everybody else didn't know. I felt like I was in on the secret, and felt like I was going to be saved. I really did. I really felt like I was going to be saved. And then right around age 15, 16, is when things really started to change for me. Really started to like boys, really started to get pressured by my parents to get baptized, and wasn't really ready mentally and emotionally. And what really triggered it is right around that time, the youngest kid ever got baptized. I think he was 11, and son of an elder. And he got baptized, and that changed everything in our congregation as far as age. So the pressure was on. The pressure was on to make a decision. And what are you waiting for? And what's the big deal? Is there something else you're trying to do? This is the answer. And so fell into that whole route early on. I don't even know how old I was anymore. I don't even remember, but it was right around that time, 15, 16. It was literally right on the cusp of being boy crazy, which I remember kicking myself because literally, like, I felt like 2 weeks after getting baptized, all of a sudden I got horny. Like, it was so weird. It was so weird, like literally. And what's so crazy about it is in the religion, they tell you that that's Satan. So that's the answer. It's not like, oh, freaking scientifically your body gets horny. It's like, that's Satan trying to get you now. So that's literally what I thought. I was like, oh my gosh, as soon as I got baptized, Satan is coming to get me. And it was awful. It was absolutely awful, being in that world of, you know, baptized and wanting to kiss boys all of a sudden and feeling as if Satan is out to get me. I mean, it was horrible, mentally horrible. And so I sat with that probably until I was like 16, 17 years old. And then I just said, fuck it. And I realized really early on that if you date boys within the religion, they tell on you, because Jehovah's Witnesses are taught to like narc on each other. So I went out into the world and I started dating men who are boys who were not Jehovah's Witnesses in order to get away with dating, and had to keep a secret, keep the secrets from my parents. And it was really frustrating for me because I'm normally a very talkative person. And I know that if things were different, I would have been more open, especially with my mom, about my relationships. But I went through all of that. My first kiss, my first hand, holding hands, my first boob grab, like all of that. I did it all by myself. You can't tell your friends. You can't, like, I had maybe a couple girlfriends at school, but like, I don't even remember. But it was basically the secret identity that I had, which is like me and this boy or two or whatever I was doing at the time, and never got to, enjoy that moment with society. And that is one thing that I actually do regret, as far as me not regretting the holidays or having to sit in the library during Easter time or whatever. I don't even care, birthdays. But that whole boy thing actually really bothers me, that I couldn't talk to anybody. I couldn't sit down with my mom, or I felt I couldn't. I don't even know, but I felt I couldn't. I didn't want to make anybody else blood guilty. And so, life went on. I did date a couple JWs here and there, mostly guys who were not in the truth. And at 18 years old, I went to my parents and I told them that I had had sexual encounters and was feeling so guilty about the whole thing that I actually went to the elders on my own when I was 18. I actually had a conversation with my parents. I still remember we were sitting on our blue pineapple couch and I was crying and I said, I've done things sexually. I'm going to the elders tonight to confess my sins, which I did, and they wound up disfellowshipping me. So I was disfellowshipped at 18. I was literally disfellowshipped for exactly 6 months and got reinstated. I did all the things. I studied, I highlighted, I dove into God 100%. I felt connected to him. I felt like a real Christian, like a real Jehovah's Witness Christian, like without a doubt. There was no doubt in my mind that I was fully committed when I got reinstated, like for real, was not fake. Then within a year or two after that, ended up pregnant. So I guess that didn't last real long, but I ended up pregnant with a man. I had only known him 4 months. And it was a whole thing. It was horrible, actually. I didn't know I was pregnant. I was at work. I worked at an optical and I was filing, and there were like big drawers that you could pull out and put the files in. And I had fallen asleep 2 days in a row on the files, like literally like on the drawer of the filing cabinet, fell asleep. Second day it happened, I woke up. I was probably only asleep for a minute. And I'm like, oh my God, I wonder if I'm pregnant. Because the whole time I had been feeling fatigued, but I was working out like a fiend. I was a size 2. I was like one of the thinnest I've ever been. I was working out 2 times a week. I was like going hard, doing all the things, working a job, had a steady boyfriend, lifing, adulting. And so I thought it was because I was just working out so hard. Anyways, went to Walmart, stole a pregnancy test, didn't even pay for it. Friggin' went there, snatched it, put it in my purse, went to the bathroom at Walmart. I still remember, took it out, read the directions, peed on one stick, pregnant immediately. Peed on another stick, pregnant immediately. Peed on a third stick, pregnant immediately. I'm literally, the walls of the stalls are closing in on me. I can hear my heartbeat in my chest. And I'm rereading the directions because I'm like, I have to be reading this wrong. There's no way. I literally sat in the bathroom for 20 minutes rereading this one little slip of paper over and over and over and over again. And on the slip of paper, it specifically says, may take up to 3 minutes to show your sign. So I'm thinking to myself, well, mine took 1 second. So these must be defective. Like there's no way, because if this says 3 minutes and mine took 1 second, then they're off. There's something wrong.
This might be the best pregnancy story I've ever heard in my life. Just saying right now. Wow. Keep going.
So I'm sitting there, all 3 sticks are lined up on the thing, and my heart, I just like, after reading it 20 times, you're like, okay, I'm fucking pregnant, I guess. And my everything just, I don't even know what the fuck. Like how do I don't even know what to do. What do I do? I call up now baby daddy, who was previously my boyfriend, now baby daddy. And I tell him I need to talk to him. I don't even tell him why. I say, I need to talk to you. I drove to his work, 45 freaking minute drive, called my work. I said, I'm not coming back in. I did this on my lunch break, by the way. I went on a lunch break, never went back to work that day. Drove with my 3 pregnancy sticks in my purse, drove to meet him for like his lunch, met up, chit-chatting, and I just start bawling my eyes out. He's like, oh my gosh, what's going on? And I told him I stole. I'm like, I just stole for the first time. Oh my gosh, I can't believe this. He's like, what are you talking about? What did you steal? And I pull out 3 pink pregnancy sticks, pink plug vines. And he's like, oh my God, are you serious? I'm like, yes. The cool thing about this is he didn't even, you hear all these like crazy stories of like, it's not mine. And oh my God, are you sure? And he was like on board. His dad was actually on board. He didn't even hesitate for any more than 5 seconds. He was like, next, what do we do? What do we do next? I was actually somewhat surprised. So we come up with a plan, either keep, abort, or adoption. So we had to go to a place. So I said, I'll go home. He had to go to work. I'm like, I'll go home. I'll find a place where we can like talk to some professionals about this. This was like back in the day before like the internet was like really a thing. So I went home, I opened up the yellow pages.
Were you still going to the meetings at this time?
Yeah. Yes. Full time.
Wow.
So he had actually been to a couple of the meetings.
Okay.
So I opened up the yellow pages. I didn't know what to look for. What do you look for? So I looked up abortion, AB, in the fucking yellow pages, and there was this big old ad. So I call the 1-800 number and make an appointment for the very next day. What I'm leaving out here is we were booked. My parents had booked to leave Chicago and move to North Carolina in 2 days. I found out 2 days before we're supposed to leave the fucking state. Yeah. So I had actually moved out right after I got reinstated. I had moved out. And what had happened is my parents during that time had decided to move from Chicago to North Carolina. And they said, hey, listen, you can stay here in Chicago. Totally cool. Or you can move back home. My lease was about to come up. You can move back home. We can all move to North Carolina. You can stay in our house, get yourself situated, then just move back out in North Carolina. And we can all still kind of like be together. And I was kind of like, yeah, that'd be cool. You know, let's do having a whole new start. So I had left my apartment and moved back in with my parents at this point.
What was your parents' reaction to your pregnancy?
Oh my God. I didn't tell them. So I moved with them.
Okay, but what happened?
I moved with them for 4 months. And I was a size 2. So eventually I was not a size 2 anymore at 4 months. You can totally see I'm throwing up. They pull me outside one random day. They after dinner, they like pull me outside. And my dad goes, what's going on? My dad's super aggressive. What's going on? I didn't even hesitate. I'm like, this is like, I'm 4 months pregnant. I mean, what the fuck? I'm like halfway through. And I'm like, I'm pregnant. And my dad totally lost it, said a whole bunch of fucking shit to me that I'm not even going to say on here. That was so inappropriate to say to your daughter. And my mom was actually very loving. And my dad said, get out of our house. Leave. You want to be an adult? You want to be a big girl? Then fucking leave. Don't call us. Don't ask for money. Don't call your mom. Don't call me. Don't call your sister. Don't call your brother. Get the fuck out of our house. So I call up my boyfriend. This all happened within an hour. Like I went from like in my bed to like not having a house. So I call my boyfriend, who's in fucking Chicago, by the way, because that's where this whole thing started. And I was crying. My dad's kicking me out of the house. Like, I need to go someplace. I don't know what to do. He gets a rental car, and because his car was shit. So he gets a rental car and he drives from Chicago to North Carolina to come get me. He's there within a day. Shows up. By then, a whole like 24 hours or so has gone by. And he shows up. I think my parents thought that like they had a little bit of pull still. Like they didn't really realize that he was going to just come right now. So I think that they thought they would have like a day or two to like talk it over and like mull it. But then he was there. So right away it went from like sinner to like, just kidding, you want to stay? So it was super awkward. I already felt super bad. Now this is the second time I'm going to be disfellowshipped. We had a chance to start over. I had already shamed their name back in Chicago. Now like first round in, I'm already shaming their name. We've been to freaking the Kingdom Hall 12 times. You know what I mean? So all of that heaviness and just grossness. And like my dad said a bunch of shit to me that was not appropriate. I just didn't feel comfortable. So I left.
Was your dad serving as an elder in the previous congregation? What was the situation?
He's never served as anything.
Okay.
Yeah, he's never served as anything. So yeah, I get in my boyfriend baby daddy car and I just stuff it full of whatever can fit, which is basically just like clothes, and drive back to Chicago by myself. And that was the last time I saw my parents for a year and a half, maybe 2 years. So went back to Chicago. I was living in a 2-bedroom apartment with 12 people because we were so broke, and on the floor, on an air mattress, no dresser, clothes on the floor, and sharing 2 bathrooms with 12 people. I was working, selling newspaper subscriptions in the morning. So I would wake up at 5 a.m, pregnant, in the middle of December, in the middle of winter, Chicago. I'd go out, I'd sell newspaper subscriptions at gas stations starting at 5 or 6 in till 9. Then at 9, I would leave and I'd go to my real job, 9 to 5. Then I would go back out to another gas station and sell more newspaper subscriptions from 5 to 9. So I was literally working like whatever the fuck that is. Up at 5, working till 9 at night, my entire pregnancy, sleeping on an air mattress, mind you. It was horrible. It was absolutely horrible. No support from my parents, no support from his parents, not because he was a Jehovah's Witness, but just because he didn't have a really good relationship with his parents. And totally isolated, totally by myself, and feeling like just an unworthless, sinful piece of shit, basically. Just the bottom of the barrel, barely surviving mentally and emotionally. It was absolutely horrendous on so many levels, so many levels. About 2 weeks before I gave birth, we got an apartment and finally a bed. Wound up going into labor, gave birth, called my parents to tell them that their first grandchild was born. First, mind you. No phone call back, no response, nothing. Zero.
At this point, did you have an idea of whether or not you wanted to go back into the Kingdom Hall? And
I was the whole time.
Oh, you still wanted to be a witness. And was your boyfriend at that time okay with that? You said he was going to the meeting sometimes, but no, okay, he was not.
Not outwardly, not like you suck, but like mulling around and just being an asshole about it.
Okay.
Which I get it now.
So you had your son and you still wanted to get reinstated.
Yeah. So at that point I went full force, because at that point I was no longer, so the newspapers was getting in the way a lot, because it's money versus God. You need fucking money. So like, I wasn't going the way like a Jehovah's Witness is supposed to go. I would maybe go like 2 times a week versus 3 times or 1 time. I would always go every week though. Okay. So when I had my child though, it went full force. I was no longer doing the after hours newspaper because there's no daycare at night. So I would do morning. I dropped my son off. I had to start dropping my son off at 8 weeks, which is the youngest. He was literally like still, oh, like this big. Like I had to drop him off. It was horrible. The mom guilt was horrible. To start making money again. So at that point, I would drop him off at 6 a.m, work newspaper, go to my job, and then pick him up after that. So that means my evenings were always free. And Saturday and Sunday was always free. So I started full force going back, 100%. Never missed a meeting, trying to get reinstated, doing all the underlining, showing up, sitting in the middle of the congregation. So like most of the people could see me, even though you're really not supposed to, but I wanted to make sure everyone knew I was underlining all of my shit in bright yellow. And baby daddy was going with me every once in a while. Then all of a sudden, I don't know, 3 months in, they pull me in the back and they say, hey, without daddy. And they say, hey, listen, you need to make a decision. You need to either marry this man or break up with this man, because this whole playing house thing is confusing the congregation. So me trying to like, I'm like so desperate at this point. We're barely making the bills. I haven't talked to my parents in like a year or some shit. I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. I'm going through postpartum like you wouldn't even believe. I mean, it was ridiculous. But I didn't know. Now I know, but I didn't know back then. Like I wanted to commit suicide. I wanted to kill my baby. I wanted to throw my baby out the window. I wanted to leave him at the fire station. I was so depressed. Then they sit down with me and have this stupid, idiotic conversation with me, like so uncalled for, not even their fucking business. So, but I didn't see it that way. I was like, oh, they're trying to help me. They're trying to save me. They're trying to make sure that my relationship with God is back to healthiness. So I mulled it over for a day or two and then literally sat down with baby daddy and said, hey, we need to break up. I'm sorry. Because I didn't really want to marry him. I wasn't really in love with him, but like convenience. And he's helped, you know, we're like a family. We're trying to do the family thing. So dumb. That is probably one of the dumbest things ever. And I hold so much, I don't want to say resentment, but so much like I want to punch them in the face for doing that to me. So fucking rude. So just like on a whim, I'm just like, we got to break up. I didn't think about it. I was super naive, didn't even think of the money, didn't even think about it. All I was thinking about was God. That's it. So dumb. So he left. He was pissed. And he left the state. And no child support. He didn't give me one fucking penny. That was it. I went from halvesies to wholesies in 24 hours. So now I have no church, no community, no parents, no baby daddy, all on a minimum wage job, no college education. Totally fucked.
How in the world did you do that? I am so clueless.
I don't even know. And that's why the last post, if you saw my last post on Facebook, literally the first 2 sentences is, we should both be dead right now. I don't even know how I didn't kill myself or kill my baby. Like the thoughts that were, I was literally in the bathroom all the time, crying all the time. So much shit. Eviction notices on my apartment door every other month. My car literally getting repoed out of the parking lot. Like, I don't even know how I did it. I don't even know. Beans and rice. I literally had beans and rice every day for months. Like diapering was a whole thing of like money, just so ridiculous. And no no dressers, no toys, nothing. Like I had no money. And my child never got a crib. He literally slept in a playpen. I got a playpen from work for a gift and a little pack and play. That's what my son slept in his whole life until he got a bed, until he was like 4. He slept in a playpen because I had no money. So that little time, he literally slept in that playpen until his head and his toes reached either side. So he basically slept on like a piece of card. If you've ever, it's like plywood with a little itty bitty piece of foam on it. That's
Wow.
what he slept on every night.
And his dad was not giving you any money during this time at all,
No,
you said.
he just left. Yeah, he
And
totally just left.
Did he ever come back into your son's life when he
Yeah,
was that
we'll
young?
get into that. It was totally fucked what he did. So then I fell into the arms of this man who had money because I thought that that was my answer. And I thought this was God. I literally thought God was saving me for real. Like literally, like Jehovah God is saving me right now. So he was worldly, but he had money, clearly. So red flags everywhere. Everywhere. People ask me this all the time. When did you start to realize that he was abusive? Day one. Day one, he was abusive. But I was so dumb and I was so desperate and he was paying attention to me and nobody was paying attention to me. Everyone was ignoring me in my life. And finally, somebody seemed to give a fuck, sort of. So I fell in full force ahead. So dumb. And within a very short amount of time, he convinced me to quit my job and work for him. He convinced me to leave my place, move in with him. He convinced me to get rid of my phone bill and use his phone and eventually my car. And he basically at that point controlled my entire life. And I had emotional abuse, mental abuse, sexual abuse, which included alcohol, and financial abuse, obviously. I had no money. So I basically at that point became a slave, like a real slave for real. And just slept on a very comfortable bed every night. So that relationship was horrendous. We don't really need to get into that in
How old
detail.
was your son when you got into this relationship?
Young, probably 2.
Okay. And
Yeah,
how long were you in that for?
In the relationship for about 13 years. But our entire relationship was 15 years because I stayed working for him. So during the duration of all of this time, I was taking on more and more responsibilities of his company and it was growing exponentially. So just in general, I have a very business mindset. I'm very like expansion visionary type person. So when I met him, he was working in a little tiny office in his little tiny condo. That was where he worked. By the time I left him, we were working in 2 Chicago markets, 2 Ohio markets, 2 Pennsylvania markets, and 5 markets down here in Florida. We had 4 homes paid off in full. We had 12 cars paid off in full, 0 debt. Millionaire. So, and I left it all behind. So anyways, 8 years into this shitty ass relationship that I'm working my ass off, or he just keeps saying, hey, we're going to retire early. You're going to have a great life. We're going to get married. We're going to have all the kids. You just have to work really, really hard. We just have to work really, really hard. And once we get to whatever his thought was, it always changed, then we'll be perfect. So I just kept working really, really hard, just thinking, hey, if I just do the next thing, then he'll be nicer. If I do the next thing, then he won't rate me. If I do the next thing, then he'll give me more money. If I do the next thing, and it just kept becoming this carrot that he just kept putting in front of me. And I totally fell for it, hook, line, and sinker. 8 years into the relationship, I'm on the floor, in the bathroom, in the dark, crying my eyes out, having a complete mental breakdown, as I did weekly up to this point. And for some weird ass reason, I pulled out my phone and I Google searched, why is my boyfriend bullying me? Because it's the only vernacular I knew. And Google told me about narcissism, empathy, codependency, abuse, gaslighting, manipulation. And I basically realized that I was in an extremely toxic relationship. And not only was my spouse super fucked up, but I was also super fucked up. So I started to dive into personal power and my voice and finances. And within a very short amount of time, I opened up a secret bank account. I opened up a secret storage unit, and I started 3 online businesses. And I started just making like a little bit of money here and there. Over the course of a year, I got $6,000. Mindful, let me bring this up, by the way. At this point in my life, since we're talking JWs, I am no longer going to meetings. So I'm out at this point. My parents don't necessarily know this, so I'm somewhat living a double life. My parents didn't know that I had left the thought process of JW until I was 30. Literally the age of 30, I was like, fuck this, I'm done leading a double life. Because at this point I had told them like, yeah, I'm going to meetings, but like not going to meetings. I was going to the memorial. I'd go to a Sunday every once in a while. But at 30 years old, I literally called my mom separate, my dad separate, my sister separate, and my brother separate, and told each and every one of them, I'm no longer going to meetings. I no longer believe it. You can decide to have a relationship with me or not, but like, that's on you. I will always be open with you. I will always come to you with open arms. I will never hold anything against you. But it's like 100% in your court. And they were fine with that. So
They were fine with that. Were they actually talking to you? And what kind of relationship did they have with your son at this point?
Yeah, thank you for saying that. So when I was probably when my son was 4, I got reinstated. That might be a lie, somewhere around there. I got reinstated at 4. I don't even know how I did that though, because I was in this shitty ass relationship. So,
and you were living with him, correct?
Yeah, maybe I blocked it out, but I did. While I was in this relationship, I somehow got reinstated.
Did you not bring up that you were living with this guy to the
No.
elders? Okay. So they just thought that you were supporting yourself, you and your son.
Yeah.
And had a job.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't even know how I freaking did that. You know how I did it? This is how I did it. I was registered at one Kingdom Hall, disfellowshipped, but I purposely started going to another Kingdom Hall that was really fucking far away from me on purpose, so they wouldn't do visits to my house.
Okay.
I told them that I worked way over there because our office. So I was going to meetings by our office, which was really far. Purposely, I did that. So that way there'd be no, what are those shepherding calls? So they wouldn't come visit me. So that was my whole thing. I'm like, I'm a single mom. I can't be doing all of this. If you want me to go, I'm going to have to go here. And so they were talking to each other. That's what it was. And I got away with it. I don't even know how. But at that point, honestly, I was getting back just to fucking get back. The whole thing was bullshit to me. I didn't even care.
How often were you going to the meetings?
I went to all of them.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah. I think it took me maybe 8 months. I just showed up one day, probably like 3 weeks later, I sat down. I said, I need to talk to somebody. I told them the whole scenario. They were like, we have to call the congregation and see. They called, they okayed it, the situation. And I just went full force ahead for, I guess, 8 months or so. Wrote maybe 2 letters. I think I wrote 2 letters, and they reinstated me.
So at this point, you were like 25 or something?
Huh?
You were like 25 at this point? Okay.
Yeah. And I did all that stuff, like, made sure that I was going to all the meetings, made sure they saw that I was highlighting all the shit, all the freaking bullshit you have to do. So yeah, they let me back in, and then literally within months, I never went back. Like, I just fell out. I literally just got back because of my parents. But see, the dynamic worked because my parents lived in a whole nother state. I was in Chicago, they were in North Carolina. So it was perfect. Nobody was checking up on me. The congregation that I had gone to probably thought I went back to my old congregation. But it was all manipulation. It was all like, I did it on purpose. I knew how it worked good enough to be able to like fix it all and whatever, you know. So
at this
yeah,
point, you got reinstated. And then from that point, did your boyfriend say like, "Oh, this is so interesting that you're getting reinstated"? Was he involved
I
in
didn't
like
even
this?
tell him. He didn't even care.
Okay, so you got reinstated after a couple of months. You stopped going to the meetings, but then it took like several years for you to actually tell your parents and your sister, "I'm not a
Yeah,
witness anymore."
yeah, years.
Okay.
Yeah, I was playing it off I just played off of that. If you get reinstated, people just assume that you're good.
Exactly. So what
They're-
happened after you called them? What kind of, you said that they were kind of okay with it. What kind of relationship
yeah,
did you
everything
have
was
with them
fine.
after?
Everything was fine. And everything actually still is fine. But like, what does that mean? I don't know what that means. It's a very shallow, superficial relationship in the sense of I can't really tell them all the shit that I'm doing. They know I'm living with my fiance. They know I don't go to meetings. Um, but at any moment they could drop. I could say the wrong thing. I could insinuate the wrong thing. I still have to listen to their conversations of like trying to convince me. Like once a year, my dad calls me and like reminds me that Armageddon is coming and I'm going to perish and I need to make a decision. And what are you waiting for? And, I have to sit there and listen to it. I don't have to. I choose to sit there lovingly and listen to it. It's frustrating.
And do you feel like you have to bite your tongue when you speak to them?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's kind of like, and this is the whole thing, you people who are like, I wish I had what you had. Yes and no, because yeah, it is. It's great. I'm not saying that I would want to change it. However, it's not really real. It's somewhat fake. And you don't know how open and honest you can be because at any moment, one thing that you say that's just a little bit off this interview could, if they saw this interview, this could be the thing where the whole relationship poofs. But there comes a point
can
where
I ask you a question?
Yeah.
What would you say to somebody who's getting reinstated just to speak to their family and also wants to just fade like you did?
I wouldn't say anything.
Mm.
Oh, it's not my place. It's really not my place. If I had to do it over again, I would probably still do it this way. And the reason I would probably still do it this way is it's kind of like what you and I were talking about beforehand. It's like, what if? Like, what if something happened, like my dad died or some shit. And then that happens, like people die and then you never get to go to the funeral. They don't even invite you. I would hate to say don't try and then some shit like that happens to somebody's family. And then like Sabrina told me, not that I'm anybody, but you have to just do what's good for you. You have to do what you feel is appropriate. I would probably still do it the same way. However, I can tell you from personal experience that it's just as painful to do it this way as you're thinking it is to do it the other way. They're both equally painful. Because even though you have a relationship with your parents, you still don't really have a relationship with
And the relationship your son has with your parents, what is that like?
It's non-existent. But it's non-existent not because they really want it to, but because I I don't want him getting preached to. I don't encourage it on either end, because I don't want him to accidentally fall into it. He could fall into it. He could still fall into it. He could wind up dating some girl who's a Jehovah's Witness. I don't fucking know. He could date some girl who's a Mormon and fall into a similar situation.
It happens. It happens.
Yeah, totally. But I don't want to be the one to try to push that. And then they invite him to the memorial, you know, like, hey, you should go to the memorial. My mom would totally look it up. She'd totally find the address. My son is an empath, just like me. He's a stronger empath, but he's still an empath. And he'd end up fucking going or some shit, and an elder would grab a hold of him. Who fucking knows? So I don't encourage it. So they don't, you know, so they keep their distance.
So that was 10 years ago that you completely decided that you didn't want to be a witness anymore. You told your siblings and your mom. So what has happened in your life between 10 years ago when you left the relationship to now? What has happened? Like, talk about your exit strategy out of your abusive relationship, if you could do that.
So I started those online businesses. A year in, I have $6,000 saved. Now that's not a lot of money, but to me, that was like $1 million. I can't even explain to you how rich I felt. I felt like the richest woman on the face of the planet. I had done this under the radar. I had done this secretly. I was like brilliant. You have to remember, every day I was told that I was not smart. I was dumb. I was an idiot. I wasn't college educated. I was a ghetto Mexican. I was dirty. I was living with this abusive man who every day told me in some way or another that I was unworthy of anything. So when I saw the $6,000, it was growing $6,000. I was like, oh my God, I am smart. I had like proof. So there was a part of me that was like, I want him to see this. I want him to see that I'm like super smart. So one day he's coming up the stairs behind me. I'm on my computer with my bank account open, $6,000. I'm so happy. And there's a part of me that wanted to leave the website, the like link up for just enough time for him to see it. I don't know what I wanted to I don't know what I thought he was going to say, but like right before he came up behind me, I like clicked away. I'm like, no, he can't see this. I clicked away, but he fucking saw it. He fucking saw the $6,000. So dumb. And he went into a complete rage. Ungrateful. You're a bitch. You're taking advantage of me. How dare you? I'm paying all the bills. You're not paying anything. How do you have money saved up? And at that point, he was paying me $250 a week. Yeah, working. That's all the money I made. And that paid for all the groceries, my son, all my extra, everything. So every day I was living, if it was just him, I was living paycheck to paycheck. I was still shopping at Walmart and Aldi's. I was still shopping at Goodwill, thrift stores for all of my clothes. I had no money, still living with him. We had all these houses, all the stuff. Like we were living in a beautiful, like $1.6 million house at this point. And I'm driving a brand new BMW and I have no money, zero. So anyways, $6,000, he sees, I can't hear you.
Oh, I said, that's really fucked up. I did not know it was that bad.
It was so bad. It was so bad. So he sees the $6,000. He says all these things to me and he stops fucking paying me. He's like, that's it. You're not making your allowance anymore. He said salary, but I called it my chore money. Because while I'm running his business, you have to remember, I'm also keeping the house clean, doing all the house stuff and running the entire business at the same time. I'm running offices in Chicago, Ohio, Pennsylvania, and down here, doing all the recruiting, all the training, all the sales, 14 to 16 hours a day, morning to night, all while keeping up my body and being a good mom. all at the same time. It was insane. So anyways, he stopped paying me for 6 months. So basically all that money was washed. I'm still running my side business, but like all that money dwindled basically. Then finally he starts paying me my $250 again. And 2 years later, I find myself with $13,000 in my account. $13,000, most money I've ever had. I'm so excited. This is the best day of my life. I call up my son's father. Now this time I've kept it a secret. I'm not making that mistake again. I call up my son's father one random day. I'm planning my escape. I'm like, this is it. I have money. I'm on my way out. I'm going to make all the plans. I'm looking at apartments, but I'm scared shitless. So I tell my son's father, call him up. I'm like, hey, at that point, we were like on talking terms. He was seeing my son a few times here, a few times there, doing things, helping with school, back and forth, whatever. I call him up. I'm like, hey, I'm going to leave. I'm in a really toxic relationship. Everything's fine, but I just want you to know because I'm like kind of scared. I'm a little nervous. I might need some help from you financially, just in case if like something happens. I haven't been on my own literally for like my whole life at this point, besides my little stint at 18. So he's like super reassuring. He's like, oh my gosh, good for you. I'm so excited for you. That's awesome. Cool. 100%. I'm like, awesome. Hang up the phone. A couple weeks later, he calls me back. He's like, hey, can I please take Elijah, that's our son, on a camping trip? I'm like, yeah, of course, 100%, definitely. Picks him up, takes him on a camping trip. School starts on Monday. He promises him back on Saturday. Saturday, he calls me up. He's like, hey, can I keep him for one more day? I said, yes, 100%, but have him back on Sunday because he starts school on Monday. He's like, yes, of course, obviously. Sunday comes along, 5 o'clock in the afternoon, silence. I start to get that little mother's intuition thing going on. I send him a text. And instead of being all aggressive because of my whole codependency bullshit that I deal with, I send him a text that says, instead of being like, where the fuck is my child? Which is what anybody normal would have said. I'm like, hey, can you let me know if I like need to make dinner or like if you're feeding him dinner or, you know, trying to be all loving and kind and nice. And he shoots me a message back and he says, I will no longer be accepting anything other than emails in exchange. Yeah. So I open up my email.
What the fuck is that even?
I open up my email. I'm literally shaking. Mother's intuition. I open up my email, long ass email. Fucking long, this long. Long story short, thank you so much for taking care of Elijah for the past 11 years. I will now take it from here. Thank you very much. He had moved in with his girlfriend. I didn't know this. So I didn't even know where he fucking lived. He had the whole thing planned out. He moved in with his girlfriend and blocked me on all social media overnight, blocked me on text, and was only accepting emails. So luckily, when him and his girlfriend had started seeing each other, I had taken a screenshot of his girlfriend as a catty female, and I had sent it to my best friend. I said something like, you know, this is the new girl that baby daddy is going out with, you know, like all cattiness. So luckily I had done that though, because I had her freaking name. So I looked back through the text messages, got her name, put in a Google search, the name. And like 22 of these women showed up in Miami, Florida. I knew they lived in Miami, Florida. So by this time it's like 9 o'clock at night, I'm texting, I'm like, bring him back. You know, have to, the things are not going through. I'm like emailing, I'm crying. My boyfriend, by the way, was not home. He was out of town. So I'm by myself at this point. Call up my mom, just bawling. I'm literally like, if you could only imagine, like just a mess. So I pull up a Google search of all of these names. I'm on the phone with my mom. I'm texting them, emailing them, telling them that they're kidnapping them. All this stuff is horrendous. Finally, at midnight, I'm like, if you don't have him back by midnight, I'm calling the fucking police and like, I'm coming to get my kid. They never showed. At midnight, I have this list of all these names and addresses, get in my car, and I fucking drive 2 hours to Miami. And I literally just start hitting off the addresses. Address 1, I'm driving around. I'm looking for his dumbass car everywhere. Nothing. Address number 2, driving around, looking for his dumbass car everywhere. Finally, I don't know, halfway through the list, number 11, I don't freaking know. I see his dumbass car. My heart's going a million miles an hour. I'm like, I can't even freaking believe this right now. He's literally at home, just chilling. Like nothing is the matter. I call the police. I literally call the police. It's 1 a.m. I call the police. 2 very handsome police officers come to meet me. I'm a mess, but I'm being very cool because you can't act like a psychopath. You have to be cool. So you can tell I'm upset, but I'm being like, chill and calm because I've done a lot of work on myself. And I very calmly tell them what has happened. I brought all my shit with me, all the medical records, all the passport, the freaking social security, all the grades, everything to prove that my son has been living with me for the past 11 years. The police officers very kindly go all through all the shit. And they basically, long story short, say, do you have a court order? And I say, no, but I have all this shit. And they're like, all this shit doesn't matter. You need a court order. So I'm like, well, what the fuck am I supposed to do? He's like, you can't do anything. So they go knock on the door, 1 a.m. Baby daddy comes out. They go in, make sure my son isn't dead. They come back out. They're like, your son isn't dead. He's calmly sleeping in his bed. We literally can't do anything. I'm very sorry. So I stand out there and I talk to them for a couple of hours. I'm literally just, dude, I'm dealing with this relationship that's fucked. Now I'm dealing with this. I'm like trying to get my life back together again. The universe is just shitting on me. So go back home. Next day, get a lawyer. Lawyer says, go pick him up from school. I'm not going to get into all this unless you really want me to, but a whole bunch of other drama goes into all of this. And long story short,
it's great. This is what a great story.
18 or a year later, it took a whole year. $18,000. So you have to remember, I originally collected $13,000. Now I'm $18,000 negative. So needless to say, I never moved out because I'm literally dishing out just thousands to this lawyer, trying to get my life, my son back in order where it's supposed to be. A year later, I get a contract that's like fucking 12 pages long, costing me $18,000, that says all of the holidays and the weekends at which my son is supposed to be over there and child support. I'm in my car and I'm just all dramatic, like in the movies. I'm hitting my steering wheel. I'm crying out to the universe. I have no money again. I'm just like, what the fuck? Like, I keep trying. I am legitimately trying. You know what I mean? Like, I am legitimately fucking trying to get my life back together. Like, for real. There's nobody can dispute all of the fucking work that I'm doing right now. I'm waking up every day. I'm optimistic. I'm in a good fucking mood. I'm fucking my man, even though I hate him. I'm running a business. I'm doing this online thing. I'm being an awesome kick-ass mother. I'm paying my fucking bills. I'm doing my taxes. What the fuck? So I'm literally having a nervous breakdown in my vehicle, like bawling my eyes out, hitting my steering wheel, and just wanting to drive my car up a bridge. Like, this is not working. God is punishing me. The universe is punishing me. I don't fucking know, but this is bullshit. So I had to make a decision. Am I going to try to do this again? Am I going to try to do this again? I was exhausted. I was so ready to be done. And then this whole thing just yanked me apart again. I don't even know why I tried to do it again. I did it again. This time with child support, though. this time with child support. So 1 year, I freaking worked my businesses hard. I doubled down on all of my money. I was flipping stuff at fucking thrift stores. I was doing all the things plus child support and my shitty ass chore money. And within 1 year, I saved in my bank account $31,000. $31,000. At this point, I found a place, which is a whole nother story, how that happened. It was crazy. And then I got into a huge argument with my ex or my abuser purposely, which we got into arguments every day, but like I purposely used this excuse, moved into the guest room a year before I left and got a place. And I started to slowly sift all of my shit out of his place and into my place because I had my own room. So he couldn't tell that like my shit was getting smaller and smaller and smaller. Plus I was selling stuff on eBay. And then one day I'm at the Container Store. True story. It's all a true story. I'm at the Container Store. I'm looking legit. I'm like, I got my shit together. I have money in the bank. I have a place. I'm freaking living 2 double lives, which I'm used to doing now. I'm like badass at living double lives now. And I'm like loaded in my head. I'm just loaded. My businesses are flourishing. I'm making money. And I get a call. I get a call from my abuser. He calls me up. He's like, hey, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm at the mall. I'm at the Container Store because I was trying to organize my new apartment, my new house. He didn't know that though. He's like, what the fuck is going on? I'm like, what do you mean what's going on? And I knew what he meant. He goes, I just went into your room to run the RoboVac. And I opened up your closet and there is only one dress in your entire closet. One single dress just hanging in my closet.
Shit.
Yeah. And I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, then I went into your dresser and opened up every single one of your drawers. And all you have in your drawer is one thong and a pair of pajamas. And I'm like, yeah. What the fuck are you doing? I'm like, I'm moving out. He's like, are you fucking kidding me? Elijah's room, I totally cleared out like 2 weeks before that. He didn't even know. I just cleared out the whole room, everything.
Fuck, wow.
Closed the door. He didn't even know. So he then went into Elijah's room. My son and I were sharing a Jack and Jill. I had moved into the guest room. So my son and I were sharing Jack and Jill. My son had gone with his dad over the summer. I planned out the whole thing so beautifully. It was like an orchestra. And so his dad, my son was with his dad. And so I cleared it out after he left because that was part of the court order now is he was with his dad for the whole summer. So I cleared out his whole room once he left, closed that door. My abuser never went in there. And now I just have one dress. He went into my son's room. He's like, there's nothing in here. Everything is gone. So he's like, come home right now. What the fuck? You can't leave like this. You run the whole business. I have no idea how to run my business. And I'm like, well, that sucks to be you now, doesn't it? Came home and I literally put my dress in my bag. I put my underwear and my pajamas, my toothbrush, and my BMW keys, put them on the table, my phone, put on the table, my computer, put on the table, and grabbed my bicycle. And I left the house with my little purse and my bicycle.
So you left your phone and your computer and everything.
He owned it all.
Wow.
Yeah,
wow.
He owned it all. So I had already gotten all that. I had already went out. I bought a new computer. I was just using his shit until the whole thing collapsed. But I already had my own computer already set, ready to go. I already had my own phone and my own plan. All that stuff he was paying for. So I just like kept using it until I was out. And freaking rode my bike to my house. Rode my bike to my house. It was crazy.
Wow, you must have been having so much adrenaline during that time.
I have no idea. It was so, when people talk about like anxiety, I'm like, dude, I have had so many bouts. Like, I feel like my body should have just like combusted in like the amount of anxiety my body has felt throughout my life. I don't even know how sometimes I'm still mentally like capable of functioning. I feel like my brain should have exploded a couple times. But yeah, so I moved out, and I still remember my first night there. I had my mattress on the floor, and I didn't even know what to do with myself. I didn't have to do anything. I didn't have to clean anything. I didn't have to answer to anybody. I didn't have to do anything. It was so nice.
For the first time ever, you were on your own and you had your own space, and your son wasn't living with you at this time. So you were by yourself. You had that summer to yourself.
Yeah.
And then you were planning on bringing your son back. Now, what was the relationship like with your abuser? Did he completely leave you alone?
No, he didn't. So up until that point, I had read so much stuff on narcissism. I became and this is, I'm just being totally honest. And if you're in a narcissistic relationship, like, listen the fuck up. You can manipulate them just as much as they are manipulating you if you play the game correctly. So the whole thing is a game. There's no feelings. They have zero empathy, zero. They don't even understand the concept of like feelings. So I totally like got into the game, and I took on 1,000% more responsibility on purpose. I gave him accolades. I told him he was the best. I would literally like cheer and scream his name when he walked in the office. Like, they love that stuff. They love that stuff. I'd be like, Bubba's in the office. And he freaking ate that shit up. His morale went up. I mean, I'm awesome just in general in the sales office. I mean, that's just like my thing. I've been in sales my whole life, but I escalated it 1,000% on purpose. So when I left, he didn't even know the passwords to his own bank accounts. Like, that's how bad it was. His own personal, not business. He didn't even know the passwords to his own personal bank accounts. That's how much I was doing. I was literally running his entire life, everything. So when I left, I just left cold turkey. I didn't leave him anything. I didn't leave him a key. I didn't leave him jack shit. So he had two girls, my two girls that I had trained there that knew some shit. So I was ignoring all of his phone calls, and he went back to work. And within the first 2 weeks, he lost, I don't know, a few sales. It was $11,000 down. I'll never remember. It was the first time he cried on the phone. He left me a voicemail. I didn't answer the phone, but he left me a voicemail. He's like, $11,000. He's crying, sobbing on the floor. $11,000 we lost. You know, I need you. I can't do this without you. I know that I've said some shit to you. They apologize, the whole thing. They always do that. They apologize. They say they're sorry. They'll never do it again, blah, blah, blah. So I waited 2 months, and my businesses were already rolling. Like, I was paid up with my place, my house. I had Airbnb rolling. I got Airbnb rolling immediately. I was running my businesses. I started podcasting more and YouTubing more than I already was, which I had already been doing all that shit on the side with my businesses. And 2 months in, he's still blowing up my phone. Pictures, poems, desperation. And I pick up the phone. I had written out this whole thing that I was going to pitch to him of how much money and all the things that I needed. He called me up. One random time, I just decided to answer. He's like, oh my God, I can't believe you're answering. How are you? Can you come back? I need you. And I was like, sure. As long as this, like salary, car, gas, insurance, whatever. And he said, yes. He's like, 100% yes, but you have to come in tomorrow, 9 o'clock in the morning. I said, 100% cool, done. So went in, and he agreed to everything. He gave me the shittiest car on the lot, rusted old 2008 Toyota Sienna van that smelled like armpits with no air conditioning. But I didn't give a fuck. Paid for my gas, paid for my health insurance, my car insurance, and freaking more than quadrupled my salary. It was crazy. So fucking worked my ass off. However, the difference is previously, for the past 13 years, I was running the business solely pretty much by myself. He would basically come in once a week and bitch about what of a shitty job I'm doing, even though we're making shitloads of money. But that's all they do is complain. So he'd come in and just complain about whatever's going on and how it sucks, because there's always something wrong in every business. There's always like an area in which you can improve. He'd always point out that one area and remind me that I suck as a business person. But now he was there micromanaging me every single day. So he would be there. He'd get there at 9 a.m. and stay the whole time I was there, nitpick, micromanage me, and basically just degrade me the entire time. So before, I'm basically running the place. Now I'm not only helping run the place, but now I'm also the coffee getter. Yeah. The lunch picker upper, basically admin. Like he just treated me like an intern at that point. Yeah. Just total bullshit. But I did it, I did it, whatever. He made fun of me constantly. He degraded me constantly in the office, made fun of me constantly in the office. Took all the credit for all the shit that I had put together. And I cried almost daily. I mean, it was horrible. I cried almost daily. And then finally, a year and a half in, I couldn't do it anymore. I sat down with him and I said, hey, listen, I'm giving you 6 months. I thought I could do this. Like I thought that if we separated, and I just did the relationship or just did the business, that I'd be able to handle that. But I literally can't. I mean, our personalities don't work together. So I gave him 6-month notice. I said, I'll find somebody to replace me. I started bringing girls in to replace me. I don't like her. She's not smart. She's not pretty enough. I don't like her voice, blah, 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 blah. 4 months before I'm about to quit, I sit down with him again and I say, hey, listen, I don't know what kind of game you're playing here, but like, if we don't find a girl, you're out of luck, because I'm already making money. My business was rolling at that point. So I was doing coaching after work. I was doing coaching on the weekends, and I was already making money. Like my website was up, everything was good. So, so I said, you can take me seriously or not take me seriously. I don't care, but like, I'm out. I don't need any of this anymore. Like I'm set. At that point, I had bought my car cash. So I had already handed in my car and started making the separation of all the stuff. So he decides to bring in a girl. And the girl that he decides to bring in is his girlfriend of 2 months. 2 months he had known her, to take over a bank account that had like $1 million in it. It's insane. Well, whatever. So I trained her. She was identical to me in all the areas that was me when I first met him. No money, totally broken mentally and emotionally, no self-esteem, shy, timid, no voice, very attractive. And then to double down on it, not even a citizen of the United States of America. Yeah. So cash only. So for the first month or so that I worked with her, he hadn't even paid her, which is the same exact fucking thing he did to me. She literally like sat me down. She's like, I still haven't received anything from him. Like, I don't even know how to approach that. Like, how do I even say anything? And I was like, girl, welcome to my life. He literally did the same thing to me. So, she got wind very quickly that he's an ass, but she, she's in a desperate spot. So whatever, I warned her right before I left. He started doing triangulation real heavy, where he would tell me something, tell her something. So then we started to get catty and weird. And then and he's feeling all like, I got a big dick because he's got his ex and his new one working together. So he's feeling all high and mighty. And like, it was so narcissistic, the whole thing, like classic. So about a week or so before I left 2 weeks early because I just couldn't handle it. Literally, it was just so messy emotionally with her and me. So about a week before I left or so, I sat down with her and I said, hey, well, I didn't know I was leaving at this time, but I was supposed to be leaving in like maybe 2 weeks. And she had come to me. She's like, can you please tell me? She's like, keeps doing all this stuff. Like, he's aggressive. He's yelling. She's coming and crying a couple times. Like, I don't know what to do. Is this normal? How would you handle this? And in my head, I'm like, girl, like, are you blind? We're both the same age. We were both literally the same age at that point. He didn't like go after a 20-year-old. So I just told her straight up, I was like, he's a fucking monster. I mean, don't get too close. Don't commit. I don't know. Maybe he'll be different with you. I don't know. He's horrible with me. So maybe you're kinder. Maybe you're nicer. Maybe he loves you more. Maybe you're hotter. Maybe you're better in bed. I don't know. But whatever I am, he was horrible with me. Does that mean he's going to be horrible with you? I don't fucking know. You know, maybe he loves you more. Maybe if he loves you more, maybe he'll be nicer. Maybe if you're better at something, maybe he'll be nicer. Maybe, I don't know. So I basically said he's a monster, but maybe he's just a monster with me. Maybe you're the perfect one for him. So I told her, but without telling her anyways, like a dingbat, she went back and told him everything that I fucking said. Yeah. So he came back to me, of course, just screaming and yelling. Obviously, I mean, I totally get that 100%. I don't like knock him for that. But then the next day, I'm like, this is it. Like, I'm not dealing with this. Like, what a bitch, not to be rude, but like, you couldn't keep that to yourself for one fucking day, for real? So I just put in my 2-week notice, or I just put in my notice. I didn't put in my 2-week notice. I literally just said, I'm leaving today. I will finish out training today. She knows all the things. She's very smart. She can figure out the rest just like I did. She has all the keywords, all the passwords, all the things, all the connections. I left her this whole book of all the things. Whatever she doesn't know, she can figure out. She's smart. I'm out. So I finished off the day. He came in. It was so awkward. He came in at like 3. It was like so fucking awkward on so many levels. And I finished up the day. And that was the last time I saw either one of them. I literally packed up all my shit. I had tears in my eyes. It was so emotional for me on so many levels, good and bad, you know, but I freaking rollered my shit out and I never saw either one of them again. And that was like 5 years ago.
That is such a crazy story. Wow, wow, wow.
Yeah.
I never heard this story in detail just because you interviewed me and we talked a little bit about your story last time. So this is just like blows my mind. What a story you have. So that was 5 years ago. And what was the situation with your son? Were you having split custody at this point?
So his dad was getting him every other weekend, and most of the holidays, he didn't get him most of the holidays, but I just gave him to him most of the holidays because I don't really celebrate the holidays. I don't really care. And the summers. So I had him full time in school, and then he would just see him Friday through Sunday, every other, and then the whole summer. And that's the way that it still is. However, my son doesn't really go see him anymore. He stopped seeing him maybe about 9 months ago.
Oh, wow. And why did he stop seeing him 9 months ago?
I don't know.
Just didn't feel like it anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I had to walk him through it. I never really asked him why, but it was very difficult. It was a whole thing that happened. I'm trying really hard to raise my son with empathy, which he does. He does have empathy. But I'm trying to raise him as a strong, empowered empath. So to speak his mind. So I had to walk him through how to have uncomfortable conversations with his father, who does have narcissistic traits, and to stand up for himself by himself, without me intervening. So there comes a point, which I believe that's around 17 years old, where you have to start learning to use your voice. And so I didn't feel comfortable any longer calling up his dad and being like, hey, can we switch weekends? Hey, he has a birthday party. He doesn't want to do this weekend. Can he do? So at 17, I was like, listen, if you want to change things around, you have to start having those uncomfortable conversations with your dad. I'm not doing that anymore. So you have to deal with all that crap. So with that, he's gotten stronger. And at one point, I don't know, a while ago, he didn't want to go see his dad every other weekend anymore.
Wow. Wow.
And he had missed like 2 weekends in a row, every other, but like basically a whole month. And he was coming up on a third one, and he called his dad to say like, hey, don't really want to come. His dad had a total conniption fit, started swearing. And my son is in the bedroom with me during this. And his dad just starts having a freaking heart attack on the phone for real. And my son is like, why are you swearing at me? Like, I was so proud of him. He's like, don't swear. You don't have to swear at me. And, his dad's like, I don't understand, blah, blah, blah. And my son's just like, well, dude, I got a life. Like, I'm working out. I have friends. I have plans. Like, I don't want to. It's nothing to do with like our relationship. I'm just freaking busy. I'm not like 12 anymore. So that was the whole thing. His dad called me freaking out, telling me that I wasn't being supportive of the relationship, and I'm going to regret this and blah, 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 blah. And I just laughed at him. I was like, dude, you cannot do this. You did this to me for so fucking long. Like, are you seriously having this conversation with me? You're upset because he doesn't want to see you, but then for the first 11 years of his life, you didn't see him. Like, do you think that's a little bit of karma right there? What do you want me to do? He's like, you need to go and you need to force him to get in your car and you need to drive him down here to see me. And I'm like, have you seen our kid lately? He's 6'3". You want me to drag my 6'3" son into the vehicle and make him like, no.
18 years old, 6'3", like that's not happening.
I'm not doing that anymore. So anyways, it caused this whole thing, obviously. His dad acted like a total psychopath. My son wanted to go into the gym. He calls me 30 minutes later. He goes, Mom, my dad is a freaking psychopath. I'm like, what is going on? He's like, yeah, he's calling me up, threatening me, telling me he's going to call the lawyers because it's in the contract that I need to go see him. And I'm like, dude, this is what I was dealing with. Exactly. So it caused this whole awkward frickingness within the relationship and he wasn't even not seeing him for any other reason other than just like, he didn't want to go see him. He just was like hanging out with his friends. I don't freaking know. But his dad's getting all like personal about it. He's thinking it's this whole personal thing. And it literally had nothing to do with that. The kid just wants to be with his friends. So, his dad turning it into this whole big thing that it wasn't caused this whole rift, awkwardness within the relationship. So now they still call, they talked, texted or whatever, but now it's awkward. But the only person to blame is his dad. His dad made it fucking awkward.
Wow. What a crazy story. So in the last 5 years, talk about what you've been into and what brought you to, and I know that this is such an awesome project. You have HerVersion with your podcast. Yeah. So what brought you to this point?
Yeah. So I started telling my story. I was so pissed at myself for being so dumb for so long. I was pissed at nobody saving me. I was pissed at the religion. I was pissed at myself, just angry. I'm angry at my abuser. I'm angry that I didn't get more money out of that situation. I'm angry that I did so much work and created so much, like, I don't want to say wealth, but like goodness in my life from my hard work. And then I had to walk away from the whole thing and start totally over from scratch, as if I haven't already made so much. And I'm just angry. So I started this YouTube channel called HerVersion, and her is me. my version of my story. And I just started talking about my story. I started talking about my abuse. I started talking about my stint with Jehovah's Witnesses and that whole fiasco that they put me through. And I started to talk about being a single mom, postpartum, suicide, and women started coming out of the woodworks of relatable stories. Or I think I'm being abused and I didn't even know it until I heard your story. Or, you know, I also was an or I'm also an ex-Jehovah's Witnesses, or I also am a Jehovah's Witnesses, and I'm starting to have these thoughts. And, you know, I started to tell women like, hey, why don't you tell your story? Why don't you come onto my YouTube channel and tell your story? Because your story is freaking powerful. And it just kind of evolved into this beautiful array of stories. So now the podcast is an entire community of females only who tell their stories and help inspire and teach other women who are possibly in that darkness right now, what they did to get out and what their life looks like now and what it could look like for them if they did take that step forward towards whatever their passion or their thoughts are. And it also runs parallel to my actual company, which is Human Better 365. And that is a university that I'm slowly creating, all based around time management organization. And there's going to be approximately 62 reels of curriculum that a person has to go through or could go through, kind of like a college, of all of the things that they don't teach you in school or church or through your parents that are important. All the bullshit that I had to figure out by myself through all of this fucking shit that I went through. And, you know, a curriculum that will hopefully keep people from staying in crappy situations for as long. I do believe that everybody has to go through shit, right? You kind of have to go through some shit, but hopefully be able to pull you through that stuff a lot quicker than it would have taken you without that extra education through the Human Better 365 curriculum. So they run parallel to each other, and both of them are just based on inspiration and leading a life different than society at a higher level mindset and the importance of that.
I love that. And what a story has brought you that has brought you to this very point. Wow, it's so amazing. And I'm so honored to have heard your story in such crisp detail. It's so inspiring. And I know that a lot of people are going to be inspired by the story because it has so many different facets as well. It's not just the relationship that you had with this man, but it's also the relationship you had with your parents, leaving the witnesses, getting disfellowshipped twice, like the whole thing. It's just like, wow, so blown away, Sabrina. Like seriously, it's like, yeah, so many different levels. I personally am just leaving this conversation with my heart full of just being inspired. I was just like, I don't even know where the story is going to go with Sabrina, but I know she's a really awesome person. And like I said, I've heard bits and pieces from our conversation of your story, but this just blew my mind. And I hope people are watching the whole fucking interview because this is just like a next level kind of interview. So I just want to say thank you so much, Sabrina. And where people can find you where can people find you? And I'm going to add the links to where people can find you in the description box. So go ahead. Where can people find you?
So I make it pretty easy. Just my website. So sabrinavictoria.com. And that has everything. It has the podcast. It has my sobriety. It has my Human Better 365 and all of my social media.
Amazing. Dude, yeah. That was so awesome. I love this interview. It's so colorful and beautiful. Thank you for being such a ray of light. I really, really appreciate it. And like I said, I really hope people make it this far, but if they don't, that's totally fine. It gave me personally a lot. So I'm going to end it with that. I want to say thank you so much for being on this episode with me. And it's really an honor. So thank you.
Thank you.